The first sign was small, barely a ripple in the fabric of our lives. Jenna had always been meticulous, someone who thrived on routine and stability. She liked knowing what the next day would bring, from the way her coffee was brewed to the exact time she'd leave for work. But lately, something had shifted. It started with her phone. Jenna had always been open about it, leaving it face up on the counter or couch, its screen lighting up with notifications from friends and coworkers. But now, it was always with her, clutched in her hand, tucked into her pocket, or placed face down whenever I entered the room. I told myself it was nothing. People have phases. Maybe she was just being more private about work stress or catching up with her sister about something personal. But the change stuck with me, like a thorn lodged just deep enough to irritate. One evening, I decided to bring it up. Jenna was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone while Emma, our 7-year-old daughter, colored happily at the other end. "You've been glued to that thing lately," I said, trying to keep my tone light. She looked up, startled, then laughed nervously. "Work's been insane. You know how it is." Her answer was plausible enough, but it didn't quite settle my unease. "Anything you need help with?" I offered. "No, it's fine," she said quickly, standing to refill her glass of water. "It's just emails and stuff." She kissed me on the cheek as she passed, and for a moment, the familiarity of the gesture soothed me. But as I watched her walk away, a part of me couldn't help but wonder, what was she hiding? The changes in Jenna didn't stop with her phone. Over the following weeks, I noticed other things, small, subtle shifts that would have been easy to miss if I wasn't paying attention. She started leaving the house earlier in the mornings, claiming she needed extra time to prepare for work meetings. In the evenings, she'd retreat to the office room, saying she needed to finish up projects. Sometimes, I'd hear her on calls, her voice low and muffled through the door. When I asked about it, she always had an explanation. "It's the promotion," she said one night as we got ready for bed. "If I want to move up, I have to show I'm willing to put in the extra effort." I nodded, not wanting to seem unsupportive. Jenna had always been ambitious, and her drive was one of the things I admired most about her. But something about her tone felt rehearsed, like she was telling me what she thought I wanted to hear. One Friday evening, she told me she'd be working late. Emma and I decided to make a night of it, ordering pizza and building a blanket fort in the living room. As we played, Emma looked up at me with wide, curious eyes. "Why isn't Mommy here?" she asked, her voice tinged with disappointment. "She's working, sweetheart," I said gently, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. "She's always working," Emma muttered, her lips forming a small pout. "Doesn't she want to play with us anymore?" Her words hit me harder than I expected. "She loves us very much," I said, forcing a smile. "She's just really busy right now." Emma seemed to accept my answer, but the knot in my chest didn't go away. Was Jenna really just busy? Or was there something more? That night, after Emma had fallen asleep in the fort, I sat in the living room, scrolling aimlessly through my phone. Jenna still wasn't home. Her text from earlier had been brief, "Don't wait up. Late meeting." I glanced at the clock, 10:47 p.m. Meetings didn't usually run this late. My fingers hovered over the screen, tempted to call her, but I hesitated. What would I even say? "Where are you? What are you doing?" It felt paranoid, and I didn't want to be the kind of husband who couldn't trust his wife. Still, as the minutes ticked by, the doubt in my mind grew louder. When Jenna finally came home just after midnight, her steps were soft as she entered the house. I heard her pause in the hallway, as if listening to see if I was awake. "Hey," I said, my voice cutting through the quiet. She jumped slightly, clutching her bag. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said, standing to face her. "Long meeting?" She nodded, avoiding my gaze. "Yeah. Sorry it ran so late." Her tone was breezy, but her body language betrayed her. She didn't meet my eyes, her hands fidgeting with the strap of her bag. I wanted to ask her more, to press her for details, but I stopped myself. If she was hiding something, she wasn't going to admit it now. And if she wasn't, well, I didn't want to push her away with baseless accusations. Okay, I said finally. Get some rest. She smiled, the gesture small and almost sad, then headed upstairs. I stood in the hallway for a long moment, staring after her, the unease in my chest settling in like a permanent weight. The tension between Jenna and me hung in the air, invisible but undeniable. She was physically present, but emotionally, she felt miles away. The easy conversations we used to have were now replaced by silence, or worse, surface-level exchanges that left me feeling emptier than before. One Sunday afternoon, I decided to take Emma to the park while Jenna stayed home to catch up on work. Emma ran ahead, her laughter ringing out as she chased a group of pigeons. I sat on a bench, watching her play, my mind elsewhere. "Daddy," she said, running up to me and pulling at my sleeve. "Yeah, sweetheart?" I asked, shaking myself out of my thoughts. "Can Mommy come with us next time?" she asked, her big brown eyes searching mine. "I miss her." My throat tightened. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "We'll bring her next time." But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't true. Jenna had been distancing herself from us, from me, and I didn't know how to bring her back. That evening, after Emma was in bed, I decided to bring up my concerns. Jenna was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, the glow of the screen lighting up her face. "Jenna," I said, sitting beside her. "Can we talk?" She glanced at me, her brow furrowing slightly. "About what?" "I feel like we've been off lately," I said carefully. "You're always busy, always distracted. I miss us." Her lips parted slightly, and for a moment, I thought she was going to say something meaningful. But then she sighed, shaking her head. "Adam, I'm just under a lot of pressure at work. You know that." "I do," I said. "But it feels like more than that." She set her phone down, her expression shifting to frustration. "What do you want me to say, Adam? That I'm failing at work? That I'm stressed out of my mind trying to juggle everything?" "That's not what I'm saying," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I just want to know what's going on with you." "Nothing is going on," she said sharply, standing up. "I don't know why you're making this such a big deal." Before I could respond, she walked out of the room, leaving me sitting there, stunned. It wasn't like Jenna to shut me down so completely. The woman who used to confide in me about everything now felt like a stranger. The real breaking point came later that week. Jenna had left early in the morning, saying she had an important meeting out of town. Emma was at school, and I decided to use the day to work from home. As I cleaned up around the house, I noticed Jenna's laptop sitting on the desk in the office room. She rarely left it behind. I hesitated, my heart pounding as I debated whether to open it. A part of me felt guilty, like I was crossing a line. But the nagging doubt in my mind wouldn't let me walk away. I opened the laptop, surprised to find it unlocked. My hands trembled as I clicked on her email. Most of the messages were work-related, but one subject line stood out: "Last night was perfect." I stared at it, my stomach twisting in knots. The sender's name was Mark. Without thinking, I clicked on the email. The message was brief, but it was enough to confirm what I had feared. "Jenna, I can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible. Can't wait to see you again." My chest felt like it had been crushed under a weight I couldn't lift. My vision blurred as I scrolled through more emails, each one more damning than the last. The truth was undeniable: Jenna was having an affair. The realization of Jenna's betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my chest. For hours, I sat in the office, staring at her laptop screen as though the words might rearrange themselves, offering some other explanation. But there was no denying what I'd seen. The emails painted a vivid picture of her relationship with Mark. It wasn't just physical, there were mentions of inside jokes, shared memories, and promises to see each other soon. Each message was a blow, tearing apart the image I had of our marriage. By the time Jenna returned home that evening, I had barely moved. She walked in with her usual breezy smile, setting her bag down on the counter. "Hey," she said, kissing me on the cheek. "How was your day?" "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "Yours?" "Busy," she replied, pouring herself a glass of water. The meeting ran longer than I expected. Her lie hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to confront her right then, to demand answers, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I watched her move around the kitchen, acting as though everything was normal. That night, as she slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Was I to blame? And most painfully, did she even love me anymore? When I finally drifted off, my dreams were filled with fragmented images, Jenna laughing with Mark, her phone lighting up with his name, the emails flashing on the screen. I woke up drenched in sweat, the weight of reality crashing down on me. The following day, I decided to confront her. I couldn't keep this inside any longer. Emma was at a friend's house for a playdate, giving us the privacy we needed. Jenna was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, when I walked in. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "We need to talk," I said. She looked up, her brow furrowing slightly. "What's wrong?" I sat down across from her, my heart pounding. "I know about Mark." Her expression froze, the color draining from her face. What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb, Jenna," I said, my voice shaking. "I saw the emails. I know you've been seeing him." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Tears welled up in her eyes as she set her phone down. "Adam, How long?" I demanded. "How long has this been going on?" Her shoulders slumped, and she looked down at her hands. 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies and betrayal. My stomach churned at the thought. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why would you do this to me? To Emma? To us?" "I don't know," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did." "That's not an answer, Jenna," I said coldly. "You don't accidentally have an affair." She sobbed, her shoulders shaking. "I was lonely, Adam. You've been so focused on work, so distant. And Mark, he made me feel seen." "Seen?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You could have told me how you felt. You could have talked to me instead of sneaking around with someone else." "I didn't know how," she said desperately. "I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Do you even hear yourself?" The conversation spiraled from there, each word cutting deeper than the last. By the end of it, I was emotionally drained, and Jenna was a sobbing mess. I couldn't bear to be in the same room as her anymore. "I need space," I said, standing abruptly. "I'm staying at Jason's for a while." "Adam, please," she begged, reaching for my hand. "Don't go. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes." "I can't do this right now," I said, pulling away. "I'll be back for Emma." Her cries followed me as I walked out the door, but I didn't look back. Walking out of the house felt like leaving behind everything I thought I knew. Jenna's sobs echoed faintly in my ears, but they felt distant, almost surreal. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The weight of her betrayal was too much to bear. I drove to Jason's house, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Jason had been my closest friend since college, the kind of guy who could read you like a book without you saying a word. When he opened the door and saw my face, he didn't ask any questions. He just stepped aside and let me in. "Beer?" he offered as I dropped my bag on the floor. "Yeah," I said, collapsing onto his couch. He returned with 2 bottles, handing one to me before sitting down. "Want to talk about it?" he asked, his tone cautious. I took a long sip, the bitterness of the beer matching the bitterness in my chest. "Jenna's been having an affair." Jason's eyes widened, but he didn't interrupt. He let me talk, let me unload everything I'd been holding in, the late nights, the phone, the emails, the confrontation. By the time I was done, my bottle was empty, and my throat felt raw. "I'm sorry, man," Jason said finally. That's brutal." "Yeah," I said, leaning back against the couch. "I don't even know what to do next. How do you move forward from something like this?" Jason was quiet for a moment, then said, "One step at a time. You don't have to figure it all out right now." Over the next few days, I tried to follow Jason's advice. I focused on the immediate, making sure Emma was taken care of, setting up a routine, and keeping myself busy. But every quiet moment brought the same questions back to the surface. How had this happened? What had I missed? And most painfully, could our marriage be salvaged? The first time Jenna and I spoke after the confrontation, it was about Emma. I had picked her up from school and taken her to the park. As she played on the swings, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Hi," she said softly. "How's Emma?" "She's fine," I said, watching our daughter laugh as she soared higher. "She's having fun." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Adam," Jenna began, her voice trembling, "I know you don't want to talk to me right now, but we need to figure out how we're going to handle this. For Emma's sake." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "What do you want to do?" "I think we need to keep things as normal as possible for her," Jenna said. "She doesn't need to know everything." "I agree," I said. "She's too young to understand. But that doesn't mean we can pretend everything's fine." "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Adam." The apology felt hollow, like a raindrop trying to extinguish a wildfire. "I'll drop her off at your place after dinner," I said, ending the call. Co-parenting in the wake of Jenna's betrayal was harder than I expected. Every interaction with her felt like reopening a wound that hadn't had time to heal. She tried to reach out, sending long texts filled with apologies and promises to change. I read each one but never responded. What was there to say? Words couldn't undo what she'd done. Emma, blissfully unaware of the turmoil between us, became my anchor. Her laughter, her hugs, her endless questions about the world, they reminded me that there was still good in my life, still something worth fighting for. One evening, as I tucked her into bed, she looked up at me with wide eyes. "Daddy, why don't you and Mommy live together anymore?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I sat on the edge of her bed, searching for the right words. "Sometimes grown-ups need some time apart," I said carefully. "But we both love you very much. That will never change. Promise?" she whispered. "Promise," I said, kissing her forehead. As the weeks passed, I started to consider my options. Part of me wanted to try counseling, to see if we could rebuild what we'd lost. Another part of me wondered if it was even worth it. Could I ever trust Jenna again? Would I ever look at her without seeing the betrayal? I met with a lawyer to explore my options. "You have solid grounds for divorce," she said after I explained the situation. "But if you're considering reconciliation, I'd recommend taking some time to think it over. Once you file, it's hard to go back." Her advice stayed with me as I left her office. I didn't want to make a decision out of anger or pain. I owed it to Emma, and to myself, to make the right choice, even if it wasn't the easiest one. The days blended together as I wrestled with the decision that would define my future. On one hand, there was the life Jenna and I had built, the home, the memories, the promise of forever. On the other, there was the undeniable truth of her betrayal. Forgiveness felt like an impossible mountain to climb, and yet, the thought of walking away completely filled me with a deep, aching sadness. One evening, as I sat on Jason's couch, staring blankly at the muted television, he broke the silence. "You can't keep living like this, man," he said. "You've been here for weeks, but I don't think you've made any real moves toward anything." "I don't know what to do," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "How do you forgive something like this? Can you?" Jason shrugged, taking a sip of his beer. "I don't know. But you can't stay in limbo forever. You need to figure out what you want, and what you deserve." His words stayed with me long after he went to bed. What did I want? Did I want to fight for my marriage? Or was I clinging to something that was already gone? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet with Jenna for a serious conversation. She had been asking for weeks, and I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. We met at a neutral location, a quiet park near Emma's school. The air was cool, the leaves rustling gently in the breeze. Jenna looked nervous as I approached, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. "I'm here for Emma," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "What do you want to say?" She took a deep breath, her eyes filling with tears. "Adam, I know I've hurt you in ways I can't even begin to fix. But I need you to know that I love you. I never stopped loving you." I stared at her, my chest tightening. "You have a funny way of showing it." Her face crumpled, and she wiped at her eyes. "I know. I was selfish, and I let my insecurities take over. But I want to fight for us. For our family. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, therapy, counseling, anything." Her words hung in the air, heavy with desperation. Part of me wanted to believe her, to cling to the hope that we could find our way back to each other. But another part, the part that had seen the emails, heard the lies, knew it wasn't that simple. "You don't just get to say you're sorry and make this all go away," I said finally. "Trust isn't something you can rebuild overnight." "I know," she said quickly. "But I'll do the work. I'll prove to you that I'm serious." I shook my head, standing abruptly. "I need time, Jenna. I can't make this decision right now." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." As I navigated the aftermath of our conversation, I realized that I needed to focus on myself for the first time in years. My life had revolved around our family, our marriage, and my career. But now, in the wake of Jenna's betrayal, I felt untethered, like I didn't know who I was anymore. I started therapy, hesitant at first but quickly realizing its value. Dr. Collins, my therapist, helped me unpack the complex emotions I was carrying: anger, sadness, betrayal, and even guilt. "You're allowed to feel all of this," she said during one session. "But you don't have to let it control you." Her words resonated deeply. Slowly, I began to let go of the bitterness, replacing it with a sense of clarity. I didn't need to make a decision about Jenna right away. What I needed was to rebuild myself, piece by piece. One weekend, I decided to take Emma on a little adventure, a day trip to the beach. She squealed with excitement as we splashed in the waves, her laughter filling the air. Watching her, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. "Daddy, this is the best day ever," she said, her face glowing with joy. "It's pretty great, isn't it?" I said, scooping her up and spinning her around. In that moment, I realized that no matter what happened with Jenna, I still had something worth fighting for. Emma was my world, and I would do whatever it took to give her the stability and love she deserved. After my day at the beach with Emma, something shifted inside me. For months, I had been consumed by Jenna's betrayal, replaying every moment, every lie, every excuse. But seeing Emma so happy, so carefree, reminded me of what truly mattered. I couldn't undo the past, but I could shape the future, for her and for myself. The next step was meeting with Linda, my lawyer, to finalize the legal side of things. I walked into her office with a newfound clarity, ready to take the next steps. "Have you made a decision?" she asked, her tone professional yet kind. I nodded. "I want to file for divorce." Linda leaned back in her chair, studying me for a moment. "Are you certain? Once we file, there's no going back." "I've thought about it," I said, my voice steady. "I've given Jenna time to prove she's serious about fixing things, but I don't think I can trust her again. This isn't just about me, it's about Emma. I need to move forward." Linda nodded, her expression softening. "I'll get the paperwork started. Given the circumstances, this should be a straightforward process." Telling Jenna about my decision was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. We met at the house, the place that had once been our sanctuary but now felt like a battlefield. She sat across from me at the dining table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "What did you want to talk about?" she asked, her voice cautious. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I've decided to file for divorce." Her face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Adam, please," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't do this. We can fix this. I'll do anything." "I know you're sorry," I said gently, though my own voice wavered. "But this isn't something I can come back from. Too much has happened. I can't trust you, Jenna. And without trust, there's nothing left." She sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "What about Emma?" "She'll always have both of us," I said firmly. "We'll co-parent. We'll make sure she knows she's loved. But this marriage is over." Her cries echoed through the room, but I didn't waver. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of certainty, a clarity that had eluded me for so long. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings, and difficult conversations. Explaining the situation to Emma was the most heart-wrenching part. We sat down with her together, presenting a united front. "Sweetheart," I said, taking her small hands in mine, "Mommy and I are going to live in different houses from now on." Her eyes widened, tears pooling in their corners. "Why?" she whispered. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," Jenna said softly, her own voice shaking. "But we both love you very, very much. That will never change." Emma cried, clinging to me as though letting go would shatter her world. I held her tightly, whispering reassurances that felt as much for me as they were for her. Over time, Emma adjusted. She divided her time between our two homes, adapting to the new normal with a resilience that amazed me. She still asked questions: why couldn't we all live together again? Would we ever be a family again? But each time, I answered with honesty and love. In the months that followed, I poured myself into creating a stable and happy life for Emma. My apartment became a haven, filled with laughter, love, and moments that reminded me of what I was capable of. I started running again, using the rhythmic pounding of my feet against the pavement to clear my mind. I reconnected with old friends, rebuilding relationships I had let slide during the chaos of my marriage. And slowly, I began to find pieces of myself that I had forgotten existed. One evening, Jenna and I met at the park during one of Emma's playdates. She looked tired, her face etched with the pain of everything that had happened. "How are you?" she asked, sitting beside me on the bench. "I'm okay," I said, surprising myself with the honesty of the answer. She nodded, staring out at the playground. "I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry, Adam. For everything." "I know," I said, my voice soft. "And I forgive you." Her head snapped toward me, her eyes wide. "You do?" "Yes," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I've made peace with what happened, but I need to move forward. For myself. For Emma. Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded. I understand. Thank you. As I walked away from that conversation, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Forgiving Jenna didn't erase the pain she had caused, but it allowed me to let go of the anger and resentment I'd been carrying. It was a step toward healing, a step toward a life where I could finally be free. After the conversation with Jenna, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time: clarity. For months, I had been weighed down by anger, sadness, and confusion, but now, I felt lighter. Forgiveness didn't mean I forgot what she had done or that I wanted her back, it meant I was no longer tethered to the pain. Emma continued to be my greatest source of joy and purpose. I put all my energy into being the best father I could be, cherishing every moment we spent together. We developed new traditions, like Friday movie nights and Saturday morning pancake-making contests. Her laughter filled the apartment, making it feel less like a temporary escape and more like a home. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching her favorite cartoon, she turned to me with a serious expression. "Daddy, are you happy now?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. For a moment, I didn't know how to answer. Was I happy? My life wasn't what I had envisioned, but it was starting to feel like something better. "I'm getting there," I said, smiling. "And having you makes me very happy." She grinned, wrapping her arms around my neck. "You're the best, Daddy." Her words stayed with me long after she fell asleep, a reminder of what truly mattered. With the divorce finalized, I began to think about what the future might hold. For so long, my life had revolved around Jenna and our marriage. Now, for the first time, I had the opportunity to rediscover who I was outside of that relationship. I started focusing on hobbies I had neglected, like painting and running. Painting became a therapeutic outlet, allowing me to express emotions I couldn't put into words. At first, my work was chaotic, bold strokes of angry reds and somber blues, but over time, the colors softened, reflecting the calm I was beginning to feel. Running became a ritual, a time to clear my head and focus on the present. Each mile felt like a small victory, a reminder that I was capable of moving forward, one step at a time. One day, while picking Emma up from a friend's birthday party, I met someone who would unexpectedly change my life. Her name was Lauren, the single mother of one of Emma's classmates. She had a warm smile and a laugh that lit up the room. As the kids played, we struck up a conversation. It started with small talk, parenting, school events, but quickly turned into something deeper. She shared her own story of divorce, her struggles, and her triumphs. For the first time in months, I felt a connection with someone who truly understood what I was going through. Over the next few weeks, Lauren and I grew closer. We started meeting for coffee after school drop-offs, our conversations filled with laughter and mutual understanding. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people finding comfort in each other's company. One evening, as I sat on the balcony of my apartment, sipping a glass of wine and watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, I thought about how far I had come. The man who had walked out of his home months ago, broken and angry, was gone. In his place was someone stronger, more self-assured, and ready to face whatever came next. Life wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with that. Emma's laughter echoed through the apartment as she raced around with one of her friends, their giggles filling the space with joy. I smiled, watching her, grateful for the moments that reminded me of how much there was to live for. As Lauren walked into the room, handing me a cup of coffee, she gave me a knowing smile. "You're doing great, you know." "Thanks," I said, taking a sip. "It doesn't always feel like it, but I'm trying." "That's all that matters," she said. "One step at a time." And as I looked around the room, at Emma, at Lauren, at the life I was rebuilding, I realized she was right. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. One step at a time, I was moving forward, leaving the past behind and embracing what lay ahead.